وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to thank the MSA for the invitation to do this JUMMAH KHUTBAH. We have a small crowd, so I'm going to keep it kind of brief. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَإِنَّ مَا الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا, and behold, with every hardship comes ease. And he repeats it. In the barely with every hardship comes ease. That's in Surah 94, ayats 5 and 6. So what we're being told here is that there is this balance between hardship and ease. After the hardship will come to ease. And we recognize that this is a theme of life, that life has its hardship and life will have its ease. But the primary message here is that there's this balance. And there's this balance that is focused on in Islam. Islam is seen as a balanced way of life. Islam is seen as a way of life that stresses the spiritual, but also stresses the material aspects of life. And gaining access to the material aspects of life within the context of an Islamic way of life, within the context of the rules of Islam. The Quran says, on balance, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, O children of Adam, wear your beautiful apparel at every time and place of prayer. Eat and drink, but waste not by excess. So for Allah loveth not the wasters. Say, who hath forbidden the beautiful gifts of Allah, which he has produced for his servants, and the things clean and pure, which he has provided for sustenance? Say, they are in the life of this world, for those who believe, and purely for them on the day of judgment. Thus do we explain the signs in detail for those who understand. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about raising the question of who would prevent, who would take away the beautiful gifts that Allah has provided us. And we have situations all the time where someone is trying to say, this is forbidden, that is forbidden, but have they really dug deep enough to find out that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will really allow that particular thing? He has produced for his servants things clean and pure for sustenance. So they are in the life of this world for those who believe, and purely for them on the day of judgment. So he talks about these pure things, these permitted things being in this world, you know. And this is something that we always have to keep in mind in a world, in the kind of world that we live in today, a world that is prone to excess in everything. You know, we look around us and we see excesses in terms of food preparation. We see excesses in terms of conspicuous consumption. We see excesses in terms of social media. Our world around us is full of excesses. So it's important for us to use that Quran, use the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as that filter to attain that balance, as that way of, as the criteria for the criteria for making the decision about what we should do and what we should not do, and not obsess ourselves over denying ourselves the things that are permitted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it requires us to study. It requires us to study our deen. It requires us to study our faith, to study the Quran and the Sunnah. And again, from a balance standpoint, Allah puts in place a mechanism for us to renew our faith every year and try to achieve that balance. We know that Ramadan is coming soon, inshallah. You know, inshallah, we'll have another opportunity to renew our faith, because Allah has created a situation where we are taught that we should read 1/30 of the Quran every day, you know, during the month of Ramadan. Of course, we should be reading the Quran on a regular basis, but certainly during the month of Ramadan. And so it's a safeguard, a safeguard against us forgetting our deen, forgetting what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us. And, it's one of those situations where we look out, we look across the world, we see what's going on in the various issues of the day. Climate change, for example. Climate change, and we know that climate change is a result of an imbalance, a lack of balance in terms of what the human being, the relationship that human beings should have with their environment. So some people say, well, should Muslims get involved in the climate change issue? Of course, because we can provide a message that says, yes, you can use gasoline, but you don't use it, and you can use fossil fuels, but not to the extent that they're going to destroy the earth for the next generation. Should we be engaged in social media? Yes, but not to the extent that it takes up all of our time, that it becomes a deen in and of itself. That we're so concerned with how many likes we have on Facebook or Instagram that we put everything else aside. So again, the important thing is to strike that balance. Make our way of life a balanced way of life. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As we continue on this theme of balance, it's important to recognize the example of balance that we have in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet was a balanced person. He was a balanced husband. In a hadith from Sahih Bukhari, Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, was asked by Al-Aswad, what kinds of things did the Prophet used to do in his house? She replied, he worked for his family, meaning in the service of his family. However, when it came to time for prayer, he went out to the prayer. So he served his family. That's the first thing she talks about, him serving his family. It's part of his deen. Abdullah bin Amr bin As narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered his apartment and said, I have been told that you stand all night in prayer and fast all day. I said, yes, I do. That's what Abdullah bin Amr said. He said, yes, I do. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not do that. Sleep and stand in prayer, and then fast and break your fast. For your eyes have a right over you. Your body has a right over you. Your wife has a right over you. Your guest has a right over you. And your friend has a right over you. So regardless of what we may do spiritually in terms of our own spiritual growth and development, it's important to recognize that we have to maintain that balance, because other aspects of Allah's creation have rights over us, which means over our time. Now again, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he feared an imbalance in his ummah. He feared that his ummah would somehow become unbalanced, and we see evidence of that all around the Muslim world. We see the competing of Muslims to build the tallest skyscraper. Is it going to be in Dubai? Or is it going to be in Malaysia? Muslim countries, Muslims competing in all these kinds of material pursuits. The Prophet ﷺ said in the Bukhari Hadith. By Allah, it is not poverty that I fear for you, but I fear that this world will be spread out in front of you, as it was spread out in front of those before you. And then you will vie for it, as they vied for it, and it will destroy you, as it destroyed them. And again, we see this happening throughout the Muslim world. We don't see a shortage of material things in the Muslim world. We see an imbalance. We see some parts of the Muslim world that are filthy rich, that have every convenience and every material thing you could imagine, from gold-plated Lamborghini sports cars to gold-plated swimming pools. We see again the riches of Dubai and the Emirates. We see the poverty of Somalia. We see the riches of Saudi Arabia. And we see that same kind of poverty within Saudi Arabia itself. We see the riches of Muslims in the West, many Muslims in the West, but we don't see a sharing with their less fortunate brothers and sisters, even within the Western context. So we've hit that imbalance. He says, I fear that this world will be spread out in front of you, and it has been spread out in front of us. And now the question becomes, do we have the spiritual fortitude to do what's necessary to bring that balance back? It says you will vie for it as they vied for it, those before you, and it will destroy you as it destroyed them. So that's the challenge for us as Muslims. And it's a challenge that those of us who are Muslims in this part of the world, we have a special obligation to try to address, because we are sitting in the middle of the most materialistic culture that has ever existed. So if anyone can show that there's a way of approaching this materialism with a sense of balance, it is Muslims here in the Western Hemisphere. But we have to study, we have to be steadfast, we have to recognize that it is a challenge, it is a generational challenge. It's not something that, certainly not my generation, I'm long past the age of looking at my generation having a major impact. But each generation has to look at its own responsibility to take that challenge and recognize that balance is critical to try to maintain. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, bless us, guide us, give us the strength to implement the balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called for. Hakim Salah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن